It always starts so small, a tone, a glance, a single offhand sentence. You weren't even looking for it, but there it is, that invisible spark behind your ribs, tight chest, jaw locked, breath shallow, thoughts racing like someone flipped a switch in your spine. You tell yourself, stay calm, but your body already left the room, and by the time you've caught up, you've either snapped, shut down, or spiraled into a private war that no one else even knows you're fighting. And afterward, you ask yourself the question that always comes too late. Why? Why did that tiny moment mess me up so badly? Why do I keep giving other people the keys to my emotional state? Why do I know better, but still fall into the same trap? Carl Jung didn't sugarcoat the answer. He said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But most people, they don't want to understand. They want control, they want peace, they want to walk through life untouched, unbothered, untouchable. So they reach for the usual tools: breathe, detach, meditate, ignore, block, pretend they're zen. Put on the nothing gets to me mask until life knocks it sideways with one sentence. And then they're right back in it, rageful, anxious, shut down, or overthinking what they should have said. Because here's the truth, you're not reacting to them, you're reacting to you, to something inside that's still raw, still unspoken, still waiting to be seen. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I get angry so easily? Why does this person ruin my whole day without even trying? Then stop scrolling, like this video, because we're not here to become emotionless statues, we're here to become free. And if you've ever wanted a peace so deep that no one's chaos could touch it, subscribe. Because this journey isn't about fixing them, it's about finally meeting you. Jung believed every person is a mirror, not of who you are, but of the parts of yourself you haven't claimed yet. That's why anger isn't random, it's a spotlight. It shines right on the place you've tried to avoid, the place you hoped no one would see, your shadow. You don't explode when someone mocks something you've accepted in yourself. You explode when they poke the part you've buried. Maybe they made you feel stupid, not because you are, but because part of you still believes you are. Maybe they ignored you. And suddenly you're 8 years old again, feeling invisible at the dinner table. That's not their fault, that's a flare. Anger isn't a flaw, it's a message. It says, something inside is still bleeding. Not because you're weak, but because you're still carrying a story you never asked for. So when you get triggered, ask yourself, what did this moment just uncover? Why did I need them to see me? What was I really defending? Because underneath every reaction, there's a memory, there's a pattern, there's a younger version of you still begging to feel safe. Jung called them complexes, emotional time bombs left over from moments we never fully lived through. So when someone raises their voice, you're not hearing them, you're hearing your father. When someone cuts you off mid-sentence, you're not frustrated with the person in front of you, you're reliving every time your voice didn't matter. And you think you're angry at them. But what you're really angry at is the fact that you still have to feel this way. So what do most people do? They chase control. They try to manipulate the outer world so they never have to feel the storm inside. But control is fear with good branding. Real peace? It doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from turning toward the places that still shake. Because once you understand the language of your triggers, they stop owning you. They become teachers. So next time someone rubs you the wrong way, don't ask, what's wrong with them? Ask, what part of me just got touched? Where have I felt this before? What is this pain still trying to tell me? Because the truth is, nobody makes you angry. They only make you aware of where you're still healing. You think it's them, their voice, their smug tone, the way they always talk over you, the way they make you feel like you're less, like you're wrong for even existing. But if Carl Jung were in the room with you, he'd interrupt your blame quietly. He'd say, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is a reaction, both are transformed. So it's not just that they bother you, it's that they reveal you. You're not just being irritated, you're being reflected. The person who triggers you the most, they're living out a piece of you that you've spent your whole life trying to bury. You hate the arrogance, but maybe it's because confidence got punished when you were young. You flinch at people who overtalk, but maybe it's because no one ever listened to you when it mattered. You can't stand cold, emotionally distant people. But maybe that's because a part of you depends on connection for survival. The truth is brutal. You're not reacting to them. You're reacting to the part of yourself that you see in them. The part that was once punished, the part that was silenced, the part you learned was too much or too needy or not enough. So you became the opposite, polite, controlled, helpful, nice. And that's who the world praised. The version of you that knew how to disappear in all the right ways. But the shadow never leaves, it waits. And when someone shows up embodying the thing you've tried to erase, rage doesn't knock, it breaks the door in. Let's say you pride yourself on emotional calm, you breathe through arguments, you stay grounded, poised, collected, then one day someone storms in, loud, entitled, dramatic, spilling emotions everywhere like they've never been told to tone it down. And instantly, your blood boils. But here's the plot twist. It's not them you hate. It's the you they remind you of. The version you were taught to hide. The part that was shamed into silence. Anger, at its core, is unprocessed memory. And the people who trigger you, they're not villains. They're walking time machines and taking you back to the moment your truth stopped feeling safe. You think you're mad at this person, but deep down, you're grieving a past self. The one who was never allowed to exist fully. Carl Jung didn't say, run from those people. He said, study your response to them. Because your reaction is the real classroom. And if you're willing to pay attention, your triggers become the trail markers back to your soul. Because here's what no one wants to admit. The reason you feel powerless around certain people isn't because they're strong. It's because you've handed them the blueprint to your wounds. You gave them the authority to validate your worth. So when they reject you, it cuts. Not because their opinion matters, but because your identity was built on being accepted. When they interrupt you, it stings. Not because you can't handle noise, but because your voice has always been tied to your sense of value. When they get under your skin, maybe it's not about them at all. Maybe they've just touched the part of you that still believes it's unworthy, unfinished, unseen. So how do you change it? You stop chasing calm. You start chasing clarity. You stop reacting. You start reflecting. Not, why are they like this? But what does this wake up in me? Not, how do I shut this down? But where have I felt this before? Because emotional mastery isn't about being made of stone. It's about knowing your soul so deeply that no one else can hijack your story. Jung didn't say the shadow is evil. He said it's forgotten. And integration, that's the work. That's when your triggers become invitations. When anger becomes a translator. When discomfort becomes a guide. It means this. Someone disrespects you. You set a boundary, not with fury, but with knowing. Someone ghosts you. You don't collapse, you release. Someone tries to define you, and you smile because you already met yourself and you don't need their version anymore. That's real power, not the kind that needs to dominate, but the kind that can't be moved. Imagine it, you walk into the same room with the same people who used to drain you. The narcissist, the manipulator, the one who never made space for your voice. And now, you don't flinch, you don't tighten, you don't overthink every word. You don't shrink. You see, not just them, but you, fully, clearly, for the first time. And the fire that used to burn inside you, it's gone. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you stopped projecting. They no longer hold your power because you took it back. That's the beginning of individuation. Jung's name for the path we all walk when we finally choose to become whole. Not perfect, not untouchable, but whole. You used to think peace meant silence, no conflict, no drama, no noise. But Jung would tell you, the world doesn't have to go quiet for you to find peace. You just have to stop giving your chaos away. Because most people don't want peace, they want control. They want people to behave a certain way so they don't have to feel a certain thing. They want their environment to be soft so they never have to touch the jagged edges inside. But that's not peace, that's dependency in disguise. Control is anxiety dressed in calm clothing. It looks composed, but it breaks the second reality doesn't cooperate. So let me tell you what peace really is. Peace is when someone talks down to you and you don't spend the next 3 hours replaying it in your head. Peace is when they cancel plans again and your worth doesn't start to unravel. Peace is when the voice in your head is finally yours, not an echo of every past rejection you never processed. You think you want to be unbothered, but what you really want is to not need the world to validate what you already know inside. That's what Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Because here's the truth that scorches. You are not angry at the world. You're angry at how much of yourself you've buried just to survive in it. You're angry at how often you've swallowed your truth just to keep the peace. You're angry at how easily one person's words can knock the wind out of your self-esteem. Not because they're strong, but because your identity still needs to be approved. You've confused being calm with being safe. You've confused being silent with being healed. You've confused being agreeable with being whole. But real peace isn't passive. It's powerful. It's not, "I'm fine," while you rage inside. It's, "That hurt, but I know who I am." It's, "I see what you're doing, but I don't need to play that game." It's, "I used to react, but now I respond." That's the difference. Reaction is impulse. It's the past erupting into the present. Response is presence. It's the now holding steady, even when the storm arrives early. Let's be real. You'll still get triggered. You'll still feel the burn in your chest, the clench in your jaw, the part of you that wants to say something sharp. But here's the shift. You pause, you breathe, you don't run, you don't lash out, you don't collapse. You ask, what did this just wake up in me? What story am I telling myself right now? Where in me does this still feel like truth? And suddenly the trigger isn't the enemy, it's a portal. Because every reaction is a teacher. That person who talks over you, they're showing you where you still equate voice with value. That ex who never apologized, they're revealing the part of you still starving for closure you'll never need once you heal. That parent who still criticizes your every move, they're handing you the gift of boundaries you were too afraid to draw until now. Jung didn't teach us to run from discomfort. He taught us to meet it, to sit with the shadow instead of shaming it. And when you stop avoiding, you stop reacting. When you stop judging yourself for feeling, you stop depending on others to fix it. That's what makes you emotionally powerful. Not that you don't feel, but that you no longer become what you feel. You don't need to fake being untouchable. You need to be real with yourself first. Let me say this plain. You are not weak for being triggered. You are powerful because you noticed. You paused. You chose how to meet it. Most people don't even make it that far. They just react, justify, blame, and repeat the cycle. But you're doing something different. You're making the unconscious conscious. You're breaking the loop. You're listening to the message beneath the emotion. Because here's the final truth most people never hear. The people who hurt you were never in charge of your healing. They were just the mirror. Your healing? It starts the moment you stop needing them to change and start showing up for the version of you they never got to see. You don't need closure, you need clarity. You don't need to be understood. You need to understand yourself. You don't need the apology, you need the boundary. And once you have that, once your peace lives inside, not outside, the world can spin, but you stay still, not numb, not cold, just rooted, because you've stopped outsourcing your peace to people who were never built to carry it. And now, you finally know you're not here to control others. You're here to master your own mirror. Now imagine this. You walk into a room, same people, same tension, same sideways looks that used to gut you clean. But this time, you don't feel the need to adjust your posture to seem smaller or louder or more agreeable. You just exist, like your presence doesn't need approval to be real. That's what healing does. It doesn't erase the world. It just rewrites your position inside it. You still see the games being played, but you don't need to play them. You still hear the tone, but it doesn't pierce through your skin anymore. Because you're not porous like you used to be. Your identity isn't a sponge. You're not soaking up the energy of every person who walks in the room like your worth depends on their weather. You've stopped checking the emotional temperature of everyone else just to decide how you get to feel that day. That's what individuation is. Not perfection, not power over people. It's power over your own projection. Carl Jung knew, most people don't live in the present. They live in response to their past, projected onto whoever stands in front of them now. That's why the smallest comment can feel like betrayal, why the tiniest rejection can send you spiraling, because you're not reacting to this moment. You're reacting to all the ones you buried. The father who never listened. The friend who disappeared. The ex who made you feel unworthy. The teacher who told you were too much. The silence you were forced to fill with fake smiles and shallow breaths. So you armor up. You shrink, or you snap, or you smile through the pain, because that's the only version of safety you were ever taught. But safety isn't the absence of pain. It's the presence of self. And now you know, you don't have to become untouchable. You just have to stop abandoning yourself every time you're touched. That's the difference. It's not about not caring, it's about not needing. Because most of what bothers us comes from the gap between who we are and who we're afraid we still are. Someone calls you selfish, and it stings. That's not about them. That's about the part of you that was taught love had to be earned, that putting yourself first meant being alone. Someone dismisses you, and it makes you burn. That's not about them. That's about the version of you that once begged to be seen and learned instead to disappear. And someone being loud, arrogant, messy, it rattles you? Maybe because you were punished for being expressive. Maybe because you were taught that calm equals love and drama meant danger. But guess what? You're not there anymore, and they're not them. And this moment, it's not your past, unless you bring it. That's where the freedom lives, in the space between stimulus and story, in the breath between what happened and what it means. Jung believed that we don't find peace by deleting parts of ourselves. We find it by integrating them. That means your anger, it's not bad, it's a signal. That old jealousy, not shameful. It's the part of you that still wants to be chosen by you. That rawness you keep hiding, that insecurity, that rage, that voice inside you that still trembles at the thought of not being enough. They're not flaws. They're fragments, waiting to be seen, waiting to be loved. Integration is when you gather those pieces, not to showcase them, but to stop running from them. Because here's the truth. You can't be free from what you refuse to face. You can't be whole if you keep splitting yourself into acceptable and unacceptable versions. Peace doesn't come from pretending you're above the noise. It comes from knowing the noise has nothing to do with you. You can hear it and still stay still. That's real presence. That's emotional maturity. Not silence, not apathy, but presence so rooted in truth that nothing outside you gets to decide who you are. Not their sarcasm, not their silence, not their praise, not their cruelty, just you. And that's the real test, isn't it? Can you stay whole when someone tries to chip away at your reflection? Can you remain kind without shrinking? Can you hold your center without needing them to move? Because the most powerful person in any room isn't the loudest. It's the one who doesn't need the room to behave in order to remain at peace. That's you now. You don't flinch. You don't fold. You don't chase. You listen. You breathe. You anchor. You reflect. And in doing so, you become the one thing this world doesn't expect, unshakable from the inside out. You used to think peace meant silence, that if the world stopped talking, judging, mocking, you'd finally feel safe inside your skin. But Jung would say, it's not about turning down the volume out there, it's about turning up the awareness in here. You don't need fewer triggers, you need deeper roots. And here's what's wild, the moment you stop reacting to life is the moment you start living it. Not in defense, not in disguise, but in truth. You walk through a crowd now, you don't brace yourself. You don't search their eyes for approval like a mirror trying to find its reflection in someone else's face. You've stopped needing evidence from others to prove that you're enough, because you've looked at every broken piece inside you and said, I'll keep that too. You want to know what real freedom looks like? It's not walking into a room and having everyone like you. It's walking into a room feeling disliked, misunderstood, dismissed, and still not abandoning yourself. That's what Jung meant by sovereignty. Psychological sovereignty, where no one's perception can rewrite your presence. You still feel things, but you don't become them. You still get hurt, but you don't hand over the pen and let someone else narrate your worth. You feel anger rise, and you meet it with presence, not panic. You feel jealousy, and you get curious, not cruel. You feel that old urge to defend yourself, and instead of reacting, you witness, because now you know you are not your reaction. You are the one who sees it. That distance, that tiny gap between stimulus and story, that's where your power lives. And the people who once triggered you, they become teachers. Every judgment they throw points to a place inside you that was waiting for your attention, not their love, not their permission, yours. You used to spiral when someone misunderstood you. Now you smile because you understand yourself. You used to crave validation like oxygen. Now it's a courtesy, not a condition. You used to rage when people tried to control you. Now you just watch them and remember, chaos out there is not a reflection of chaos in here. That's the shift from identity built on reaction to identity built on recognition. You see what's happening, you name it, but you don't become it. That's emotional adulthood, not perfection. Presence, not apathy. Awareness, not numbness. Integration. So here's what Jung would whisper to you if he could sit beside you in your most reactive moment. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. And when you choose to become someone who no longer borrows their peace from other people's behavior, you become untouchable. Not because you're cold, but because you're clear. They don't get to rewrite you anymore. Not with insults, not with silence, not with praise. Because here's the final truth. You don't need closure. You don't need understanding. You don't need applause. You just need presence. And presence says, I see me now, all of me. Even the parts I used to hide, especially those. That's integration. That's wholeness. That's the kind of peace they can't take from you. Not because they stopped trying, but because you stopped giving it away. So if you're still watching, if this voice found you when you needed it, then hear this. The fact that you feel means you're alive. The fact that you've been triggered means you're being called inward. And the fact that you stayed this long means you're ready. You're not here to stay unbothered. You're here to become unshaken. There's a difference. So don't run from the anger. Trace it. Don't hide the sadness. Sit with it. Don't silence the discomfort. Translate it. Because every feeling is a flare from your shadow saying, look here, come home. And once you do, once you see the parts of you that used to beg for permission and you hold them like sacred ground, no one can use them against you again. You become whole, you become still, you become free. If this voice spoke to something buried deep inside you, like this video, if you're done being reactive and ready to be rooted, drop a comment below. I no longer need their approval. I remember who I am. And if you want more content like this, for the days when your mind won't stop racing, when the noise gets too loud, when your worth feels too easy to forget, subscribe. Because here, we don't numb, we don't blame, we integrate, one truth at a time. And with that, you're not reactive anymore, you're home.